report. Has everyone had a chance to relook at that? Robin, there were no changes, right, on the mission?
No changes to the mission statement.
Do you want to quickly go through the
performance measures is actual numbers. Shouldn't be a surprise because they're right from our dashboard. And then the efficiency down below, like all those numbers come right from the audit.
So we hit the 3 comma club here for company investments. That's,
right?
yeah.
I know.
Yeah, seriously, something
It's a hard number to write.
So, pretty, hey, who says people don't invest in Monroe County?
Right. We have
There-
evidence to the contrary.
Yeah, there
Wow,
you,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
yeah. And let's hope the streak continues. Got a lot of good things going on. If there are no comments or concerns, I'll entertain a motion to recommend to the full board the readoption of our mission statement and to adopt our 23 measurement report. Thank you,
Second.
Joe. Thank you, Norm. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next, on to our bylaws. This is our annual type of review of these. Were there any
No
changes?
changes to the bylaws this year.
I know we went through a number of changes last year.
We did. We removed term limits last year.
There's a typo on page 4.
We're about.
You want something really relevant.
Am I gonna have to find it?
It's section 6, item F.
Yep. Okay. There will be a change.
Oh.
That's my name, Cherry, though, sir?
Cheerio. Cheerio.
Just goes to show the committee did review it.
Yes,
Good job. Good job. Eagle eye. Eagle
Very
eye.
good.
In. Good.
No substance. But
Other than the typo pointed out by Ms. Burr, any other, any comments, any discussion items on the bylaws? So entertain a motion to correct the typo and recommend full readoption by the board.
I'll motion to.
Thank you, Joe. Second?
I second.
Thank you, Norm. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we will readopt our bylaws. Next, we have the Governance Committee Charter. Robin, once again, any changes to this?
No. This is the standard charter that the Authority Budget Office puts out there.
Okay.
Rachel reviews it every year.
Leave it alone for the most part.
There's a typo here, it's not on page 20.
No more typos. We're not
Right?
accepting.
No more typos.
We're not
I'm done.
accepting any more.
I'll open it up to the committee if there's any questions or any discussion items on our committee charter. Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to recommend that we readopt the governance committee charter and present that to the full board with no changes. Thank you, Joe.
Second.
Thank you, Norm. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're cruising here. Taking a look at the self-evaluations. So in general, I think coming back to a point brought up with the Finance Committee about training, I think that's something, I wasn't here for the first committee, but
It did come
it's
up
2
in
out of 3.
audit committee as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
so 3 points constitutes a trend.
Yeah.
So,
So yes, we, as staff, we're gonna put our heads together, and there's plenty of material out there that we can raise to the board's attention on best practices in IDA governance and management, and we can do a better job of getting that in front of all of you and making sure that you're aware of current trends and guidance.
I think that'd be really good, particularly after, I think when you guys attend the conference, I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of really good stuff that gets shared there. I think there'd be, based on
COVID
that,
is
some
what I
recommend.
learned.
What's that?
COVID?
Yeah, mostly we came back with COVID.
Yeah.
Mostly
We did
that.
come back with really good insights, and we always do, so that's a
Yeah.
very good point.
Housing was a hot topic, but we'll wait on that.
Let's put a pin in that one.
Put a pin in that.
Let's put a pin in that one, so.
And I'm the glutton.
We've seen this come up almost every year, which is the committee recommending qualification of new board members. So that, you know, I think we may want to take a look at that as openings come up. I think they're really, I know it's done at the pleasure of the legislature, but I think it would be beneficial, given the day-to-day interactions that this board has and the dynamic, to be able to say, hey, here's what we would really benefit from as a board. You know, speaking, it was serendipitous, but to have someone like Joe with his background has proven to be hugely beneficial. And I think for that, to have the governance committee be proactive in that, I think would be very good. And I think when an opening comes in, we should, prior to, I guess, we can't control what happens,
right.
but as much as
We
possible.
can say, here's our,
Right.
Here's our
right.
wish list.
Here's our wish list of qualifications.
Right, or, yeah, here are our basics
Yes,
that we'd
yeah.
like to see.
Like, here's a gap that we're missing.
In the event that there is an opening, typically we're not approached with, you know, we're not asked for our suggestions. The
Which-
decision really comes down from the
From on
majority's
high.
office. However, given the current dynamic and the relationships across the street between the county executive's office and the legislature and the majority, in the event that another seat does open up at some point, I think I think there's an appetite there for more.
And I think we
openness.
should offer it up.
Certainly.
That we shouldn't wait till we're asked. If there's an opening,
Like, right, away.
it would be great to say, hey, look, you know, an investment, like, hey, we would really, like, I know we've got rep, but,
Yeah.
you know, we're missing someone with that type of experience. Or we've been doing a lot of manufacturing, like, hey, we'd really like to get someone who has a manufacturing background, you know.
so we should give them
And
some,
we have in the past worked with the presidents of the county ledge in the solicitation process and review of applications and resumes. I mean, I've been around too long, but there's this period where on several occasions we were really all, you know, roll up our shirt sleeves and so. But
Since my time on the
we were
board.
invited.
Yeah.
You were part of that.
Actually, I wasn't. So since my time, we actually haven't, it's been the chair that's
Okay.
been
Right,
more involved.
Right.
So in that role, but to say that the governance committee is, I don't think, you know, I haven't seen that. But I think as a committee, we should be proactive and we should offer up our opinion, and hopefully it is considered as they are looking at.
could it be something from COMIDA? These are the type of qualities that we're looking for, you know,
Yeah.
ahead of time, like, because we
Here's what
don't,
we're missing.
I mean, I could be gone tomorrow,
Don't say
you know,
that.
or anybody.
Anybody.
So,
Anybody.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
Fair.
Yeah, and I think it's a good thing for us to be able to say, like, hey, given the projects that come before us, here's the dynamic that we would like to see. We're not picking individuals, but we really should have these type of folks to be able to provide. You know, we just went through that whole thing legally, like, hey, just
Yeah.
the perspective that everybody brings
Yeah.
makes this board more function better.
Yep.
And that will be a good segue into our next agenda item as well, but stay tuned.
Okay. All right.
But yes, that's a really good point, and we can work on that. You're not suggesting a change to the bylaws or anything, just.
I'm just, when that happens, I think what we should do is, if there is a board opening, immediately convene the governance committee to be able to provide that so that you can,
Okay.
or would you do it ahead
I
of
have
time?
to say,
Would you do it right away, just?
Well, we would know about an opening.
Sure.
but, you know, it's great. We can make our input, but the bottom line is gonna come from
Yeah,
across the
sure,
street over
yeah.
there.
But in the event that they're interested in our board,
Right. Yeah, I mean,
have
I-
it.
We'll be ready.
We'll be ready.
I can tell you, sometimes they're interested, sometimes
Yeah.
they're not. That's
Yeah.
just how it goes.
Oh, yeah, it depends on
In
the
that
day.
realm,
No, you-
that rarefied air.
No, you're absolutely right, Norm, but if we don't provide our opinion, it's certainly not.
Then
going
we're
to-
certainly not gonna have any kind of.
Yeah, that's it,
Yes.
that's it.
I wanted to add, I don't know if anybody has heard from Jackie. I know she had a surgery.
No,
A
she's
few weeks-
resigned.
What's that?
She has resigned.
And she, yes,
Oh, I didn't even
Health
know
issues
that.
and
Yeah,
family issues and
that's why.
Resigned from the ledge or resigned from
from
this board?
our board.
She's still a legislator, but she's not the liaison to this board
Okay,
anymore.
okay.
There's a new liaison to this board.
yeah, Howard Mafucci, legislator Howard Mafucci was designated by the majority leader, legislator Michael Udelson, to be COMIDA's legislative representative. But Jackie was an excellent voice and set a strong precedent for active participation. And we're thinking about her
And it probably would have been more active if her health was.
for help, right?
I know she felt really bad.
Yeah.
Looking at the board evaluation, I'll open it up to any comments from the committee. And in general, we're seeing fairly strong agreement. We're on the proper side. We have a few items in the somewhat agree. I think these are kind of consistent with what we see every year. I'll open it up to my fellow committee members, see if there's anything concerning or any discussions we want to have.
Who created these questions?
The state.
All right, so I figured. All right.
I figured I would let you all know this now. So during the whole Pittsburgh Canal side thing, I hired a forensic economist to help me decide, do I have a conflict? Do I not have a conflict? And is my position in property tax correct? Not just on that project, in general. So he spent some time, he came back to me and said, I do not believe you have a conflict. He said, I don't think you have a conflict at all. He said, I don't think you should have recused yourself from Pittsburgh. So that made me feel better, obviously. And I didn't share that with you prior to the vote because I didn't want to influence the vote, right? So I wanted you to make your own decision. But I needed to know that for myself, because if he came back to me and said, hey, I think there's a 5% chance you do, then I was gonna take a different approach. I also gave him my thought process on, why am I here? What is our purpose? What are we trying to do? What are we trying to achieve? And his evaluation, which was a little more costly than even evaluating if I have a conflict, on real property in Monroe County, it reinforced my position even further, right? So I just wanted to share that with you and let you understand, at least I feel confident of my position, that the way I perceived it, right? But it was nice to see somebody from a complete analytical approach show me data and say, hey, here's the data, here's what it says, and here's what I think. And I didn't hire somebody from Monroe County. I hired somebody from out of the county, from downstate, that's what they do. So yeah, I did it because I just thought it was the right thing to do, and I wanted to make sure that I wasn't putting everybody in this room or myself in a bad position, and that I wasn't operating on a bias or even a perception of a bias. So that's what I did. And I'll share this with you real quick. So yesterday, as God would have it, I find myself in the City of Rochford Tax Assessor's office. So today is the last day if you want to protest something, correct? So, I had an attorney that handles that stuff, and he said, Joe, I can't get there. Can you send somebody to this office to go do it? Well, I ended up going myself. And I'm in line, and there's a gentleman in front of me whose house assessment went up 40 grand. The guy was almost in tears at the counter. And he's telling the girl, I'm gonna lose my house. And she's trying, she briefly just says, well, we'll take your paperwork and we'll get back to you, right? The guy says, you don't understand, I'm gonna have to sell my house or I'm gonna lose my house. She takes her paperwork, she stamps it, we'll get back to you. Now, I wanted to talk to him and explain to him that, the city went from an 83% evaluation to 100%. So it's really not a total 40 grand.
Mm-hmm.
But his taxes still are double what they were before.
No,
No, they are. I sat there, I looked at it.
no, it won't be.
Well, let me finish.
Okay.
So I guess my point that I make is so the decisions we make when we hand out a tax abatement feeds into that. And it has impact on people that we're trying to help. And it can have negative impacts on those people. So I just want to make sure, and that's why I hired him, because I wanted him to explain to me, if you hand out $10 million worth of tax abatement, what does it do to the tax base? What does it do to the tax rate? If you hand out $100 million worth of tax abatement, what does it do? How does it look in the big picture in a demographic our size? And the impacts are substantial, and it hurts people that we don't want to hurt. So, that's what I wanted to mention to everybody regarding that. And I didn't want to tell you that. I didn't want to tell you the conflict piece of it before the meeting, again, not to be redundant, but yeah, so that's all I wanted to talk about.
For the record,
That's a commercial for affordable housing, but that's another day, right?
I have to just correct. I know a little bit more about the assessment than you do. I live it every day. My wife is the finance director for the city. So, there's a difference between ad valorem and the commercial tax rates that are out there, so you can't mix the two. Residential taxes are computed a certain way, commercial taxes are computed a different way. So whatever he's doing on his residential side has nothing to do with it. If his property taxes went up by 40% or $40,000, that doesn't mean he's gonna pay more in taxes. It's gonna just adjust the actual amount of what they're going to assess the entire tax rate for the city. In some cases, the taxes may go down. So I lived it for the last 4 months, every day at home. So I know a little bit more about it, but there's a difference between commercial and residential.
So there's on that residential form, it said to him how much his taxes were gonna go up.
That's not necessarily, that's the format, what they use is probably not the most accurate way of doing it.
Yeah.
If you read the whole letter, it said it may go up. But until you go through the process and they computate what the tax is gonna be, city council sets the tax and the mayor sets the tax based on the total budget. And that's how that works. So you have to have expertise, someone who knows government on this board too.
Do you know government?
Yeah.
Well, they.
It's very helpful because that's a common, a lot of towns are doing revals. The city is doing a reval. You see a huge jump in assessed value, but after you apply equalization rates and you have the whole picture, your tax increase might be de minimis or decrease.
Right. Because what it does is, it lowers the tax rate,
Yeah.
right? You expand the tax base, if you reassess things, and things that were low go up, right? And things that were fair stay, you're gonna lower the tax rate, so the person's taxes may not be as bad as you think. But on that letter, the commercial letter didn't say it, but the residential letter, Norman said, so that's what the guy was breathing in a bag over. And I don't blame him.
But there are a number of forums, city forums that were out there explaining that to people. My beautiful wife was there at every single one of them, explaining that stuff. And she did a good job, but sometimes when you do this, when someone sends out misinformation, it goes haywire. But the other thing I gotta add is that the city, I don't know if it happened in the county, but the city was actually sued by commercial real estate owners. Probably, 10, 15 years ago, we had to do a correction because we were charging, the city was charging, commercial accounts at a higher rate than they were doing the residential accounts. And the court said that we had to make that adjustment. So they've been making adjustments on that, for a number of years. I'm sorry for taking too much time on that. But I just wanted to, just share that, just to make sure that we all have a good understanding of that.
I actually appreciate the comments both you and Joe made, and I think that reinforces exactly what we talked about, is we need these viewpoints. I want to, obviously your expertise is really valuable here, and I applaud Joe for actually taking the effort to, it's exemplary that he wanted to bring that perspective and get that outside opinion, do that actually on his own dime. And I think his point about us being thoughtful about the projects that come before us and how they impact the entire tax base is a point we need to consider. So I appreciate both of you sharing that. I think it's really valuable. I know we're on a time crunch. I know we've got a bunch of policies here. Robin, were there any changes to our existing policy? Because I do want to.
Yes,
Yeah.
there's one
Conflict of
change.
interest policy on page 58, and this is directly related to the Pittsburgh Townside Properties matter.
Yep.
To ensure that a situation like that doesn't arise again. And Joe, you said, I didn't want to put the board in a tough spot. You weren't the one that put us in a tough spot. It was
Agreed.
an outside entity that did. So anyways, I'm going to let Rachel take it away.
So if you look on page 59 of your packet, we have a lined version of the policy so you can see the addition. Lana and Caitlin had recommended this, and I think it's a good recommendation. The bulleted list that precedes the added language are examples of conflicts. So I didn't want to add it to the bulleted list because this is an example of what would not be a conflict on its face. Is the language you hear and we have here. And this language I did take from some of the case law and authority that was presented to the board when you went through the conflict analysis.
Can I just ask one question about
Sure.
this? As when we say the mere fact that a board member has a similar financial interest, what does that?
So the case that was in question there was the board member, I think, was the provided steel fabrication and steel supply, and so they had a de minimis contract in that particular industry, and it was deemed not to be a conflict. So it was a de minimis contract, but I can take another look at that because
If we can just, the rest of it I'm fine with.
The financial
It's
interest.
that similar financial interest to me is a little open-ended.
yeah. I think the other thing to
Would you
point
say
out is
similar interest?
Similar financial interest.
Strive for financial, similar interest.
I would,
I think probably
not being a lawyer, I would just take those words out. The mere fact that a board member has a connection and or presence in a similar industry to a matter would
Yeah,
be.
that's.
Yeah, I think I think you're right, Jay. I
Yeah.
think because when you have the financial interest, it becomes a different
It's a-
conversation altogether.
Yes, yep.
So I think we'll probably just
If you-
remove that.
If you want to take a look at that.
Yeah. Yep. I'll take another look at it and we'll have the revised policy at the full board meeting on Tuesday.
That would be great. Any other changes?
No. That's a good addition.
Are there any, I'll open it up to the committee, any discussion on any of these policies?
Labor?
No?
Nothing on labor?
I would, before we move on, I would like to add one policy. I don't know if it's a policy, but maybe it should be. I think there should be a policy that any applicant should not be reaching out to a board member, either before, during, and should they do that, that basically their
change the application
Yes,
that we were gonna add.
yeah.
Well,
Should
We can
that be
address
part of
that
the application process?
Yeah,
so-
so we can add, we can certainly address that, because right now we don't have a policy that speaks to that, or any language in policy, so we'll find out where a good place for that to reside is. The other thing I wanna note is that we've added a sentence to our, application that we borrowed from another IDA that had the language, and it says that the applicant has reviewed the current list of staff and board members, and they assert that they are unaware of any conflict of interest as well. So if you put that into practice, had we done that, I think we would have had that certification up front.
I think that's fantastic. But-
So we'll have that,
Yeah,
but to your, yes.
But this is something beyond that, and it shouldn't just be that when they submit the application, if they have reached
Yes.
out prior, I mean, it's easy to
It
find
could-
out who's a member
yeah,
of the board.
yeah.
If they've reached out prior, that could basically disqualify their application. I think
Yep,
that should be
Yeah,
a
let's-
policy that we adopt.
we'll put some thought into where a
Yeah.
good place to put that is.
Okay?
but as part of the application, that's smart.
Yeah,
Because they're
it-
sign-
it should be a policy, and then it should be
Yeah.
clearly disclosed.
But I think too, when staff is meeting with project owners, they can say that, you don't need to worry about spending any time with the board members. The board members do not discuss any aspects of your project or other projects with
Absolutely,
you
and-
outside of a formal board meeting, so, and we wouldn't want you to jeopardize.
And that's the part, I
Project.
want to go further, not that the board member will not talk to you about it, but if you proactively reach out, that puts your application in jeopardy.
Exactly,
I-
and that's
Yeah.
gotta come from staff, the
I think
day
we-
one of sitting down with them on a potential project, if you believe that's true.
Yes, I do.
I think you're the front line to say, don't even think about it.
But I think we really have to wordsmith this correctly, because people are gonna come in and ask you questions, that they see you out there, they see staff people out there, and this soliciting your support, I think that should be the actual criteria, you know what I'm saying, or lobbying.
Yeah,
That's
right.
I mean, yeah, conversations, like if somebody wants to ask general questions,
Yeah.
that's fine. What I'm referring to is, I've got a project that it either is before the board or soon will be before the board.
And I want your vote.
Yeah, and I'm talking to you about that.
And they knew what they were
Yeah,
doing.
yeah,
They-
that
They
to
knew.
me is off limits.
Does that include politicians?
That's why you gotta work.
If they have
So
an
we have to be
application,
mindful.
I mean,
No,
I'm just saying from personal experience, I did receive and was highly suggested, and it did come from politicians. So I guess if we're gonna accept this as if you're gonna really do it, are we being asked to think on our own accord
well,
on all?
what I'm speaking of is the applicant, because that's where
But you're also saying and soliciting, so I would just like,
That's a good point,
pressure comes from many directions.
because what's to stop an applicant from calling the governor? You know,
We would never know.
You see what water does to a rock?
I think
or
I would
shoreline?
defer to Rachel on that. I don't, when an applicant does it, we can say that it puts your application.
Put it in jeopardy.
But if you get a call from an elected official, what is the recourse that we have? Like, we don't know whether that the applicant reached out to that elected official and that's what precipitated the call, or the elected official is calling because they believe in that project. So I would say, right now, it's a good question, Troy. Let's at least get one thing done,
Yes.
and then we can think about,
And if you take a look at the code of ethics, and this is just food for thought as we work on how we address the problem, there's language in the code of ethics that
Because it was.
gets at this point, but kind of in a reverse manner. So if you feel that you've been improperly and unduly influenced, you should recuse yourself. So if you do get those calls, I mean, that's the way we were going about it before, was I was saying to you,
Yeah,
a proactive on the
Yeah.
applicant.
Because think about it, so if you take a call from somebody
I don't know if Tony.
and you listen to them,
That's a con.
it's them taking you off the board. That you're gonna take yourself out of that.
They may
role.
be willingly doing that because they may see that Joe may vote against
Right.
it, so let me create a conflict. Joe has to
There you
recuse
go.
himself.
Well,
Right.
Right.
it operates as a no vote. So if Joe recuses, if they don't want Joe to vote, they want him, or they want him, I don't, whatever. Like on our board, we still need 4 votes. So even if you take a board member out by creating a conflict,
You're still creating a
you
no.
don't advance your cause in any way.
yeah.
You don't go from needing 3 votes or 4 votes to 3. You
I like
still
the
need-
proactive
But I-
approach.
But there's
Yeah.
there's two separate things, right? That's where the board member has the responsibility. I want to put this on the applicant.
Yes, they could result in their application
Yes.
being disqualified, yeah.
Correct.
I wonder if the state has some
Yeah.
policies on that. I suspect they do.
I
with
still
all
think
of the-
a no vote is more powerful than
Yeah.
a recusal.
I agree.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Yeah.
So I know we're time constrained, and I wanted to do one more. So I will entertain a motion to recommend that we approve all of these policies. There'll be a change that Rachel does to the conflict of interest. And Rachel, will we be able to get a draft of
I can send that out,
of
That would be great.
the other
Yeah.
that we can
Yep.
look at and
of the
recommend?
conflict of interest policy once
Of the
revised.
conflict of
Yep.
interest, but do we have time to get a draft before the next meeting?
Yeah, of the conflict of interest,
No,
sure.
not-
Oh, the other
yeah,
policy that you want to
yeah,
add.
yeah.
Yeah, let me try. I want to be mindful in how we do it, so if we have to convene another meeting,
Okay.
I'd rather do that than rush it to Tuesday.
So I
do
will,
have one more thing I'd like to add before you close down.
okay, well, let me just, can I do the motion, or is it prior to taking the
It has
motion?
something to do with mission statement
Okay.
and with Norm asking about labor. Not to happen right now, but with the developments of the COMIDA board in relationships with workforce development. Can we look at language to influence applicants to utilize our investment entities? You have the.
Oh, yeah, the
Map.
nonprofits that we invest in.
Yeah, now we're building and we're gonna build a little bit more in the future, which is awesome. But to get that language of pre-apprentice, apprentice, now coming down the pike tracks, map.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good idea, Troy.
Just to look at that language again. We had apprenticeship language in there and it got pulled out because we didn't know how to deal with it, right?
It's still in there.
No, it's still in
Well,
there.
it's not as, the direction, it's installed, right? We really haven't had a utilization of apprentices on some of the projects, that's all.
Yeah.
Not to be
No, but-
worked
Yeah,
out.
we need a dedicated governance on the apprenticeship, and we
Yeah.
need dedicated governance on
Housing.
housing.
So, yeah, so but I think Troy's idea of like this whole circle where.
Yes,
Where
where
we
yes.
create the demand is a good idea.
And I
for-
think
for
that
the-
circle,
on that.
Yes.
yeah, we have some thoughts on that.
Referring applicants, we'll come up with some ideas on,
And
because in conversations with applicants, when we're talking about workforce, we are making those connections very often. We're not necessarily requiring that anybody avail themselves of YAMTech or,
Yeah.
But I think they're good points because we have to be mindful of what we're incentivizing, like with our funding requests and workforce development, and then also so that goes to local labor, and then what we're incentivizing as far as projects and all the workforce that's needed, and then what are we doing for housing to support the projects that we're incentivizing. So I think the circular concept applies to everything we're doing right
Because
now.
the opportunity's coming here and it's gonna come heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, can I, I'll take a motion on these
So move a
policies? Second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So we're renewing all the policies with the upcoming change that Rachel's gonna make. Before everybody leaves, there is a lot on the governance committee. What I would recommend is, I would like to tackle the housing policy first. And for the committee members, if we can meet weekly, starting the week after next.
After next,
Yeah, because we have our board meeting next week.
you're gonna meet during the week of the eclipse? The eclipse?
Well, the eclipse is
That's
on.
spring break.
It's only a few minutes.
We'll get some dates out.
Yeah.
1 hour.
So why don't we do this? If everybody can look at their calendar and we can at next week's meeting, what I'd love to be able to do is to get 3 or 4 consecutive meetings together
Yeah,
of the
okay.
governance committee in short order, so we can push at least a housing policy
I
through.
think we'd also talked about having a broader information download on the economics
Yes.
of right now
About that.
in our community, so that we've got current.
And make some educated policy.
So if we need to do that, but what I want to be able to do is,
Yeah.
we need to be able to say, here's the information we need.
Here's what's going on with me.
Right.
This is the big picture, this is what housing looks like here. And are we meeting a niche or a need in housing and what we're supporting? And I think that should be part of our criteria also, but that's.
But that's exactly what I'd like to discuss. We've been talking around it,
Yeah.
about it for a while. I'd like to really,
Do you want
let's
to,
put it on paper and start to move
I
it
think
forward.
let's know what the universe is, like we're talking about in our county, and then get into a policy that way.
Yeah, so,
Jay, are you considering for each of the on the board to pick what days are best and what hours are best, so that hopefully
Yeah.
there's some.
yeah, if you can bring your calendars next week, if the committee members can bring their calendars next week, so we can either before or immediately after the meeting, just say, okay, here's when we're meeting. And I'd like to get, like I said, let's call it 3 meetings
Yeah.
in short order.
Can we start the week of the 8th, because some of us are going away for spring break?
Yes.
Your staff was going away for spring break, so.
And there's 4 people on the board, so you only need 3.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, yes, it was a busy
All right.
time, but.
Very good.
May.
Take a motion to adjourn.
Yeah.
A motion.
Norm, you seconding?
Second.
All right.